In the series of 9 important periods of American literature, let's move on to the new one. Hello, students, this is Dr. Bharti Gautam. Today, I'm going to talk about two major literary movements that reshaped American writing in the late 19th and early 20th centuries: realism and naturalism. These movements marked a decisive shift from romanticized storytelling and towards a more honest and often harsher portrayal of life. Together, they transformed literature into a powerful tool for examining society, human behavior, and the forces that shape our lives. And to understand realism and naturalism, we first need to briefly consider that came before them. Early American literature was dominated by Romanticism, which was a movement that emphasized imagination, emotion, individual heroism, and the beauty of nature. Writers often portrayed life as idealized, dramatic, and full of moral clarity. However, as America underwent rapid industrialization, urbanization, and social change after the Civil War, this idealized view no longer felt accurate. Cities grew crowded, poverty became more visible, and new social tensions emerged. Writers began to feel that literature should reflect real life as it is lived, not as it is imagined. This desire for truth gave rise first to realism and later to naturalism, which took realism even further. Now, what is realism? It developed in the late 19th century and it's a literary movement focused on depicting everyday life with accuracy and honesty. Realist writers sought to represent ordinary people in believable situations, avoiding exaggerated plots or overly emotional language. And instead of heroes and grand adventures, realism gives us common individuals, workers, families, children, and people navigating daily struggles. The goal was not to escape reality but to examine it closely. Now, some key features of realism. First, realism emphasizes ordinary life. The characters are not kings or mythical heroes but everyday individuals. Their problems are familiar: financial difficulties, relationships, social expectations. Second, realism values detailed observation. Writers carefully describe settings, behavior, and dialogue to create a sense of authenticity. The language is often straightforward and conversational. Third, realist literature often explores social issues. It reflects concerns such as class differences, gender roles, and moral dilemmas without offering easy solutions. Finally, realism avoids clear moral judgments. Instead of telling readers what to think, it represents situations and allows them to draw their own conclusions. Some of the most important figures in American realism include Mark Twain, who used humor and regional dialects to portray life along the Mississippi River. His works highlight both the charm and hypocrisy of society. William Dean Howells, often called the father of American realism, who believed literature should represent life truthfully. Henry James, who focused on psychological realism, exploring the inner thoughts and motivations of his characters. These writers helped established realism as a dominant literary force, emphasizing on authenticity over idealism. While realism aimed to portray life accurately, some writers felt it did not go far enough. They wanted to explore not just what life looks like, but why people behave the way they do. And this led to the development of naturalism, a more intense and scientific expansion of realism. Naturalism was influenced by new ideas in science and philosophy, particularly Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, which emphasized survival, adaptation, and the role of environment. Naturalist writers began to see human beings as shaped by forces beyond their control, such as heredity, environment, and social conditions. Now, what is naturalism? It's a literary movement that portrays life as determined by forces like biology, environment, and chance. It often presents a more pessimistic view of human existence. In naturalist literature, characters are not entirely free to make their own choices. Instead, they are influenced or even controlled by circumstances such as poverty, social class, and instinct. Naturalism shares some features with realism but takes them further. First, it emphasizes determinism. Determinism is the idea that human behavior is shaped by forces beyond individual control. Secondly, naturalist works often focus on extreme situations such as poverty, violence, or survival struggles. These situations reveal the raw, instinctual life of human nature. Third, naturalism presents a scientific outlook. Writers observe characters almost like scientists studying subjects, analyzing how they respond to their environment. Finally, naturalism often has a pessimistic tone. Unlike realism, which can be neutral, naturalism frequently highlights the harshness of life and the limitations of human freedom. Important American naturalist writers include Stephen Crane, whose works explore fear, survival, and human vulnerability; Frank Norris, who examined the impact of economic forces on individuals; then Theodore Dreiser, who portrayed characters struggling against social and economic pressures. Their works often depict individuals trapped by circumstances, unable to escape the forces shaping their lives. Although realism and naturalism are closely related, there are important differences between them. Realism focuses on depicting life as it is, while naturalism seeks to explain why life unfolds the way it does. Realist characters generally have some degree of choice and moral agency. In contrast, naturalist characters are often controlled by external forces. Realism tends to be more balanced and or neutral in tone, whereas naturalism often leans towards pessimism, emphasizing struggle and survival. In simple terms, realism observes life while naturalism analyzes it through the lens of science and determinism.